Today I'm focusing on facing your worst case scenario. What do we do when we seem to be at a critical impasse in our lives? What might that mean? I'd like to talk about that today and how it could mean that you're on the verge of a breakthrough, not a breakdown. Stick around. Today I want to talk about those moments where you seem circumstantially tied. Yet, you have a deep desire. You would call this a test of your faith. The critical impasse where you are to decide whether or not you believe circumstances allow you or desire reigns supreme. Haven't you heard that language before? These circumstances don't allow us. Of course, the one that really seems to make us run is the budget. The budget won't allow us. So you begin to wonder if circumstances push you around, particularly when you have a desire that seems to not let go of itself. See, this idea of the worst case scenario is there one? Is there a worst case scenario you can't overcome? If you think death is the worst case scenario, I think you're sadly mistaken. In many instances, death will probably be the best option if you're suffering a lot. But there will come a point where you have to make a choice as to what dominates you, what you desire, or are you going to continue to do things that you don't desire because you don't understand that that's the rudder or the foundation of your entire life? And I'm not talking about desire for money, because that's a means. That's one of those things like time that seems to be in the way of desire. This is not, a lot of people have desire here kind of below circumstances. And circumstances have to be thus and so before the desire is manifested. But it's the other way around. Desire reigns supreme. And as long as you prioritize exactly what you want, and you get rid of all of the things that you've been doing that you don't want to do, what you want will be the only guiding principle for the rest of your life. As a lot of us have not faced the worst case scenario yet and stood up to it. When the Israelites were trying to get into the promised land, they thought there were giants in the land. They thought there were scary ghosts. And that's what we think of. We think that the means to our desire is what keeps us from it. And that's the illusion. So what's going to happen if you have a strong desire is that all of the circumstances which seem to allow it or make it possible will completely crumble before your eyes. You'll max out your credit cards. You'll drain your accounts. You'll have used up all this time. And it's going to look like every means to that desire will crumble like confetti. And it'll seem like you have to make a choice. It'll seem like you'll have to make a choice between what you want and what you don't want to do. That's what it'll come down to. That's your Armageddon. That's your last battle before you enter heaven or the promised land of doing what you want, when you want, with whom you want, as you want, forever. It's the last fort before you get to this thing called personal freedom. And that you realize the means to your desire doesn't matter. That's not what's standing in the way. What's standing in the way is this false belief that you need the means before you can desire it. So the worst case scenario is everything falling apart financially and circumstantially. And now you're completely without any kind of external evidence to support your desire. That's the worst case scenario. There are no more funds, no more food, no more gas, no more resources of any kind. Yet, you still have a desire. It's almost as if fate, and I say fate with my quotey fingers, that's you, your fate. Fate is testing your desire. Do you really want it? Okay, well, how about I take away all your money? Do you really want it? Well, how about I take away all of the necessary things that you need to get there? Do you really want it? Well, why don't I remove all the people in your life that you think are helping you? It's just where the worst case scenario is, again, this critical point where philosophically you're at an impasse. It's your Red Sea moment. The immovable obstacle has met its match. And it's like, boom. That's the Red Sea moment. Now, you have to learn a lot about yourself. Some people try to jump into the sea and swim, and they drown. Some people wait on the banks, the outer banks, and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. Now, you have to understand that the story of Moses was that he got into the Red Sea and it parted for him. That's a myth for a metaphor for taking a risk. But once you understand yourself, it's not risky because you will have been narrowed down to only one choice, what you want. That's it. You will have been narrowed down. I call that the irreducible state. You can't bring yourself to the irreducible state. You are brought there. Not by your own power, not by willpower or determination, but by giving way. If you give way, the Red Sea gives way, if you know what I mean. So, in this breakdown of an illusion of obstacle, every single thing out there will fall apart. That's the worst case scenario. Yet, there'll be a lingering desire. That means the desire reigns supreme over the means. And most of us are living the other way around. The means is more important than the end. That would be a way of understanding that is the money is in the way. The time is in the way. The people, the connections are in the way. I don't have the right connections. I don't have the right this. I don't have the right that. I don't, whatever. Well, if you keep your eye on the prize, this is what Paul says. run the race as if to win the prize. That you're always on that desire. You're focused on that desire, that final result, that whatever it is you want. I don't care what it is. The means will disappear before your very eyes. And then what you'll want is the impossible. The worst case scenario will lead you to the impossible desire. And if you still want it, you will break through. It will give way to you. But only if you clear out the dark corners of your negative believing and you start paying attention to how much compromise and self-denial you have been engaged in. Self-denial is doing what you don't want to do, thinking that you can set up the miracle. Not doing what you want. You're not recognizing in your life where you are bowing down to the false god, which is, I have to do this. Anything in your life that appears as an obligation is the false god. And the true self, the true God, you, the true universe, the truth that eventually breaks through and sets you free is desire. How deep do you know you want it? Well, guess what? You are going to be faced with the worst case scenario to test your desire. Stick with it. Don't do anything you don't want to do. The means will disappear. And then you'll be left naked. Just you and your desire. That's it. Now what? Now you're on the verge of a breakthrough. When everything crumbles and you're not afraid and you still desire and you remain comported and relaxed and confident and quiet. It's a very quiet kind of confidence. It's not aggressive. It's actually kind of celebratory when you see this happen. Circumstances crumble, the means crumble, nothing looks like it's working, and the desire still bubbles up from underneath. That's the verge of a breakthrough. The worst case scenario is this place where you want the impossible. And you're set up for a miracle. And when it happens, you'll be quiet about it. Because you know who you are. You can accept that miracle. Or what appears as a miracle. But it's actually very ordinary. Because of who you are. You are destined to know who you are as the effortless being that can slip through and needs no means whatsoever to make a desire come to fruition. The worst case scenario is something you have to face. But you will face it, you will go through the furnace, and you will not get burned. I promise. Start doing what you want. When you want it, how you want it, with whom you want it, everything. Give yourself that freedom without thinking something's in your way. You are unopposed no matter what it looks like circumstantially, financially. The means will disappear. In that breakthrough, and the shift will occur internally. You'll have this miraculous shift inside you, which means you've honored your desire. Your faith was tested, and you passed. And the pass is a breakthrough, and this is a test of faith in yourself. That your desire is the desire of the universe. They've come into an alignment, and the means disappears. You don't need the money. You don't need the time. You don't need the connections. You just need the desire, and that you see it through because you see to the final product, to the final. You've already passed death. You're resting in peace. You're resting from your labors. Maintain that being. And your heart's desires will come in a flash. But the worst case scenario has to present itself. And you have a choice between what you want and what you think is possible. And if what you think is possible doesn't match what you want, you have to go with what you want. And then the circumstances collapse. You think, oh shit, I still want this, but I can't see how. Great. The worst case scenario didn't scare you. You passed your test. My name is Ryan. I hope you enjoyed these insights. Please check out my blog, mymorningmotivator.com.